Sometimes the hardest boundaries you'll ever set aren't with other people. They're with yourself. Hey there, and welcome to Momma Drama and Trauma. I'm your host, Jenny Kimmel, and today's episode is about boundaries with yourself. And this one feels important to me because when most people hear the word boundaries, they usually think about boundaries with other people. They think about what they need to say, who they need to distance themselves from, what they need to protect themselves from, and all of that matters. But what I've come to realize is that some of the hardest boundaries I've had to learn have not actually been with other people. They've been with myself. They've been the boundaries around my own peace, my own happiness, my own nervous system, my own healing, and the way I allow myself to be treated, not just by other people, but by me too. Because if I'm being honest, there were so many years of my life where I put myself last. I was taking care of everybody else, making sure everybody else had what they needed, making sure everything kept moving, making sure the house, the kids, the schedule, the business, all of it was functioning. And somewhere in all of that, I slowly drifted farther and farther away from myself. So this episode is not about teaching. It's not about 5 easy steps or about me trying to tell you what you should do. This is more of a from the heart episode, a reflection episode, a real episode, because I think boundaries with yourself are deeply personal. They're about being honest with yourself. They're about looking at where you abandon yourself, where you override yourself, where you keep going when your body is asking you to stop, where you stay silent when you need to speak, and where you know something needs to change even if you don't fully know how yet. For me, boundaries with myself right now look like protecting my peace, protecting my happiness, protecting the version of me that I worked really hard to find again. It means if something feels chaotic, unsafe, stressful, or like it's pulling me away from myself, I don't want to participate in it anymore. I just don't. I don't want chaos. I don't want confusion. I don't want to be in spaces where I feel like I have to defend who I am or explain myself over and over again. And I know that can sound harsh, but I think when you've been through enough, when you've had to fight your way back to yourself, peace starts to matter in a different way. It becomes sacred. It becomes something you protect. So today, I just want to talk honestly about that, about what's changing in me, what I'm still learning, where I still struggle, and what it looks like to create boundaries with yourself in a way that feels healing instead of performative. So let's get into it. The realization, boundaries with yourself. When I think about boundaries now, my mind doesn't go to other people first anymore. It used to. It used to go straight to what I needed to say, what I needed to protect myself from, what I needed to fix or create distance from in someone else. But that's not where my mind goes anymore. Now, when I hear boundaries with yourself, it feels a lot more internal. It feels a lot more personal. It feels like something that lives inside me, not outside of me. Right now in my life, boundaries with myself mean protecting my peace, protecting my happiness, protecting the version of me that I worked really hard to find again. It means standing up for myself in a way that feels grounded, not reactive. If I feel like I'm not being seen as the person I actually am, or if I feel like I'm being portrayed as someone I'm not, I don't stay in that anymore. I don't fight to prove myself. I don't try to explain myself myself into being understood. I walk away. And that's been a big shift for me. Another part of it is noticing when people are trying to push my buttons. I used to engage in that. I used to respond. I used to feel like I needed to defend myself or correct things or fix the situation. Now I try to stay quiet, not because I'm shutting down, but because I'm protecting myself. Because my boundaries now revolve around my peace. And if something is disrupting my peace, my happiness, or my feeling of safety, I don't want to participate in it anymore. And I know that might sound harsh, but I don't want chaos anymore. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly having to explain who I am. I don't want to feel misunderstood and then have to carry the weight of fixing that. I don't want to stay in situations that make me feel like I'm losing myself again. So if something crosses that line, I stop it, I remove myself, I cut it off if I need to, and I didn't always live like that. Because if I'm being honest, I didn't even realize until recently that boundaries weren't just something I needed to set with other people. I had to set them with myself too. That was a realization for me. Because crossing my own boundaries doesn't always look obvious. It doesn't always look like a big moment. It looks like the quiet things. It looks like knowing I shouldn't engage, but doing it anyway. It looks like knowing something doesn't feel right, but staying in it anyway. It looks like knowing I need peace, but choosing chaos out of habit. And the difference now is that I notice it. I reflect on it. I hold myself accountable. I look at what I could have done differently, what I need to do next time, and I call myself out. And I've always been that way to some degree. I've always been someone who is harder on myself than anyone else has ever been. I expect a lot from myself. I want to be honest with myself. And I believe if I'm not honest with me, then what am I even doing? But I can also see now how that played a role in my life. Because sometimes I assumed that other people saw me the same way I saw myself. And that wasn't always true. And that's where I think I lost some of myself too. Because I was holding myself to this internal standard while also trying to manage how everyone else saw me, while also trying to keep everything together. And now I don't do that anymore. Now my boundaries are not about controlling anyone else. They're about protecting me, where I lost myself. When I look back at my marriage and really sit with the question of where I lost myself, where I abandoned myself the most, it always comes back to one thing. I put myself last, and not just occasionally, consistently. Everything in my life was built around making sure everyone else was taken care of. The kids needed something, my husband needed something, the house needed something, the business needed something, and I was the one making sure all of it was handled. That's what being a good mom and a good wife looked like to me back then. It looked like making sure everyone else's needs were met first. Always. Making sure the kids had what they needed for school, for sports, for their day. Making sure meals were handled. Making sure schedules were handled. Making sure everything was functioning the way it was supposed to. And if everyone else was okay, then I felt like I was doing my job. But what I didn't realize at the time was what that was doing to me. Because by the time everyone else was taken care of, I was exhausted. I had nothing left. I remember toward the end of my marriage, there were so many nights where all I wanted was just a little bit of time to myself, just a moment to breathe, just a moment where nobody needed anything from me. And I would go upstairs to the bedroom, sometimes without even saying anything, because I just needed that space. And I remember my husband saying, "You didn't even tell me you were going upstairs to bed." And I understood what he meant. He wanted connection, but I don't think he understood what I needed in that moment. I needed to decompress. I needed to sit in silence. I needed to not be needed for a few minutes. And I didn't give myself that enough because I had trained myself to keep going, to keep giving, to keep showing up. Even when I was running on empty, I ignored my own needs. I ignored the things I loved: reading, writing, journaling, creating, things that actually made me feel like me. I stopped doing them because by the end of the day, I was too tired, and I could feel it in my body, in my mind, in my life, that something wasn't right. I remember having that thought, there has to be more than this. But I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to get there. And I think I gave so much of myself for so long that eventually there was nothing left to give. Even in my marriage, I remember little moments like making myself something for lunch when the kids were at school and it was just me and my husband, and him asking why I didn't make enough for him too. But if he made something for himself, he never made anything for me. And I don't think that was ever expected of him, but it was always expected of me. And it wasn't even really about the food. It was about me realizing how long I had been the one thinking of everyone else and not feeling thought of in the same way. It was about how much I had been giving and giving and giving and not receiving that same kind of care back. And I think I just got to a point where there was nothing left to give. And that shift, I don't think it was understood because for so long I had put my husband and our kids first. And somewhere along the way, I slowly started losing pieces of myself. And by the time I tried to climb my way back up, I was depleted, tired, and wasn't functioning the same way I used to. Things still got done because they had to, but it felt different. I felt different. And looking back now, I wish I would have spoken up more. I wish I wouldn't have kept the peace in certain situations. I wish I would have thought about myself a little bit sooner, because by the time I was ready to choose myself, I was already worn down. The emotional truth. One of the hardest parts of this healing journey for me has been looking at myself honestly, not just what happened to me, but how I showed up in it, the things I could have done differently, the ways I shut down, the ways I didn't speak up, the ways I ignored what I was feeling. Because I did. There were moments where I shut down completely. I didn't express how I felt. I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be seen differently. And I think that part right there, that fear of being seen differently, that's something I didn't even fully understand at the time. Because when you're in it, you don't always realize you're shrinking yourself. You don't always realize you're holding things in to protect how someone sees you, or to protect the relationship, or to avoid conflict, or to avoid making things worse. You just do it. And that's what I did. So I held it in. I kept things to myself. I processed things in my own head. I tried to figure things out on my own. And in doing that, I hurt myself. Not on purpose, but I did. And that's a hard thing to say out loud because it's easier to focus on what was done to us. It's easier to stay in that space of, this is what happened to me. This is what I went through. This is what I had to deal with. But part of healing, real healing, is being able to say, I hurt myself too. Not in a blaming way, not in a shaming way, but in an honest way. In a way that says, I see it now. And when I look back at that version of me now, I feel sadness and compassion for her because she knew something wasn't right. She felt it. She knew there was more for her. She knew something was off. She knew she wasn't fully okay, but she didn't know what to do with that. She didn't know how to fix it. She didn't know how to get herself out of it. She didn't know how to ask for what she needed in a way that would actually change anything. So she stayed. She kept going. She kept showing up. She kept holding everything together while quietly falling apart inside. And I think that's the part that makes me the saddest when I look back. Not that she didn't try, but that she was trying so hard without the tools, without the clarity, without the support in the way she needed it. She was trying to figure it out while still being everything for everyone else. And she didn't know how to help herself yet. And then today, I had this moment and it caught me off guard. I was listening to the song Rainbow by Casey Musgraves, and honestly, I almost skipped it. I didn't even know why it was on my playlist. It didn't feel like a song I would normally listen to, but I let it play. And I'm so glad I did, because when I actually stopped and listened to the words, it hit me. When it rains, it pours, but you didn't even notice it ain't raining anymore. And I felt that, like really felt that, because there was a time in my life where everything felt heavy. Everything felt overwhelming. Everything felt like I was just trying to stay above water, just trying to get through the day, just trying to hold it together, just trying to keep everything from falling apart. And I didn't even realize when things started to shift. I didn't even realize when the storm started to pass. And then the line, there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head. And that's when it really hit me, that even in my darkest moments, even when I felt completely lost, even when I didn't recognize myself, even when I thought I had lost who I was, that version of me, the real me, she was still there. She never left. I didn't lose her. I just lost my way for a little while. And something about that realization, it just broke me open in a different way. Because for the first time, I wasn't crying over what someone else did to me. I wasn't crying over being hurt. I wasn't crying over loss. I was crying for me, for what I went through, for how hard that season was, for how much I carried, for how long I stayed strong when I didn't even know how. And that felt different. That felt like seeing myself in a way I hadn't before. And through all of it, the heartache, the grief, everything I walked through, I found myself again. I found her again. And I didn't even realize how much I had missed her until that moment. And I'm so grateful I found my way back to her because I really do love her. And I'm thankful for her every single day. The shift. When I think about what's changing now, what feels different in me now, I think the biggest thing is that I really am starting to show up differently for myself. And sometimes it's in these really simple, everyday ways that probably don't seem like a big deal from the outside, but to me, they actually are. For example, my kids are older now. I have 2 that are 18 and 1 that is 17, and that changes things. It doesn't mean I stop being their mom. It doesn't mean I stop caring. It doesn't mean I stop cooking dinner or trying to keep things running, but it does mean I'm learning to loosen my grip a little bit. I'm learning that everything doesn't have to sit on my shoulders the way it used to. There are nights where I still cook dinner, of course, but there are also nights where I cook and nobody eats it together. There are nights where I cook and everybody just kind of eats whenever. There are nights where everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and there are even some nights where I look around and think, you know what? There is plenty of food here. Y'all can figure it out for yourselves. That might sound so small, but for me, that's actually a shift. Because for so long, I felt like being a good mom meant making sure everything was done all the time in the right way for everybody. Dinner handled, routines handled, everything handled. And now I'm learning that loving my kids does not mean I have to run myself into the ground trying to make every little thing happen perfectly all the time. I'm also really learning to make space for what I love. That has been a huge part of this change for me. I spend so much time now creating and reading and writing and journaling and building my podcast and writing down my thoughts and sharing them. And the craziest part is how at home I feel doing it. It just feels right. It feels peaceful. It feels like me. I feel like I found a part of myself again that had been missing for so long. And what's funny is that I'm actually a very private person. I keep things close to my heart. I always have. So if you would have told me years ago that one day I would be sharing so much of my story with so many people, I would have thought there is no way. But somehow in the sharing of it, I found healing. I think part of that is because when you keep everything in, it gets heavy. And when you start to tell the truth, not just to yourself, but to other people too, there is something about that honesty that helps you breathe easier. It's like you stop carrying it in the same way. You stop hiding from your own story. You stop trying to hold everything together so tightly. And that has been part of choosing myself too. Choosing myself in real life now looks like taking care of me. It looks like doing what I love and not apologizing for it. It looks like not caring what everybody else thinks. And honestly, that's been freeing. I don't feel like I have somebody standing over my shoulder anymore. I don't feel like I'm being judged every 5 seconds. And even if I am being judged, I really don't care the way I used to. I'm at a point now where I'm going to do me. I'm going to build a life that feels good to me. I'm going to protect my peace. I'm going to choose happiness. And if somebody comes into my life and all they bring is stress or chaos or confusion or heaviness, then I don't need that. I just don't. That's not the life I want anymore. I'm in a good place right now, and I want to stay here. I want to keep building from here. I want to keep protecting what I found in myself. Now, that doesn't mean it's all easy. It's not. Some of the boundaries I'm setting still feel hard to stick to, especially when it comes to my kids. That's probably where I struggle the most because I'm a giver, a caretaker. That's just part of who I am. And I can give to a fault. I can give too much. I can give until I'm empty. I can give until there's not much left of me at the end of it. And I'm learning that that doesn't actually help anybody. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help them. It just leaves me depleted. So I'm working on keeping some of that energy for myself, keeping some of that care for myself, letting myself matter too. And yes, there are absolutely moments where I catch myself going back into old patterns. The mornings are a big one. Trying to get the kids out the door, trying to get everybody moving, trying to get things going, and then feeling myself get stressed and frustrated and overwhelmed. That is still something I'm working on. Because when I start yelling or getting worked up first thing in the morning, it throws everything off. It throws me off. It throws them off. It sets the tone for the whole day. And the truth is, me stressing myself out over things I cannot control doesn't help anything. So I'm trying to work on my approach. I'm trying to work on my calmness. I'm trying to remind myself that just because something around me feels chaotic does not mean I have to become chaotic too. That has been a big lesson for me. And I'm also learning a lot about my needs, a lot about my nervous system, a lot about what actually works for me and what doesn't. I've learned that I'm more easy, peaceful, and slow moving than maybe I gave myself permission to be before. I don't need a hectic, rushed, always on the go lifestyle. That does not feel good to me. That is not good for my nervous system. It overwhelms me, stresses me out, and drains me. I need peace, space, calm, slowness, and I need room to breathe. And I think I'm also finally understanding that my voice matters. There was definitely a time in my life where I don't think I fully saw my voice as strong. I don't know if I trusted it. I don't know if I saw it as powerful, but I do now. Now I know my voice matters. I know it's strong. I know it means something. I know it can help people just by being honest about my own journey. And that has been one of the biggest changes for me. The healing. When I think about what having boundaries with myself looks like in a healing version of me, I think the first word that comes to mind is peace. Peace within myself, within my home, within my body, within my soul. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like easy, not chaotic. It looks like moving at my own pace. It looks like making sure Jenny is okay, making sure Jenny is in a good place, making sure Jenny is not getting left behind. And that might sound simple, but for me, that's actually huge because for so much of my life, I did leave Jenny behind. Not on purpose, not because I didn't care, but because I got so used to making sure everybody else was okay. Everyone else mattered first, needed something, had something going on, their day, their schedule, their feelings, all of it. And somewhere in that, I got pushed to the side, and I just slowly kept slipping lower and lower down the list. So now, in this healing version of me, boundaries with myself mean I don't do that anymore. Or at least I'm working really hard not to. It looks like checking in with myself, noticing when something feels off instead of pushing past it, protecting what feels peaceful and not getting pulled back into things that take too much from me, paying attention to what my body is telling me and actually listening to it. Honoring my limits instead of pushing past them just because that's what I've always done. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning a lot, actually. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning why I am the way I am. I'm learning what I need. I'm learning what I don't need. I'm learning how to work with myself instead of against myself. Sometimes I still don't even fully understand myself, and that's okay. I think that's one of the biggest things I've come to accept, that learning yourself is ongoing. It's not a one-time thing. It's not like one day you wake up and go, okay, I fully understand myself now and I've got it all figured out. No, I think we keep learning. And honestly, I welcome that. I want to keep learning. I want to understand myself more. I want to understand what helps me stay grounded and what pulls me away from myself. I want to keep growing into a version of me that feels healthy and honest and peaceful. I think we should all keep learning, especially about ourselves. Because how can we build a life that feels good if we never stop to understand what we actually need? I'm also still learning how to put myself first. That one is still hard for me sometimes. It still doesn't always sit naturally with me because it's not what I did for most of my life. I didn't put myself first. I put other people first. That was normal to me. It felt familiar. It's just what I knew. So now when I do put myself first, especially with my kids or the people I love, sometimes it still feels uncomfortable. Sometimes I still have to remind myself that choosing me does not mean I'm failing anyone else. It just means I'm finally including myself in the care I've always given so freely to everyone else. And if I were speaking directly to someone who is still stuck in those old patterns, I think what I would say is this: take a real look at yourself. Because you know yourself better than anybody. You already know the patterns. You can feel where you keep getting stuck, the things you keep doing that don't feel good for you. The hard part is not knowing. The hard part is admitting it to yourself, being honest with yourself, and then being willing to do the work of changing it. And I know that's hard because the second you admit it, everything changes. Now you have to face it. Now you have to work through it. You can't really hide from it anymore. But there is so much peace on the other side of that honesty. And that's really what I want women to feel when they finish this episode. I want them to feel like they can be honest with themselves. Not ashamed, not judged, not broken, just honest. I think deep down, we all recognize the parts of ourselves that need attention. The patterns, the reactions, the habits, the things that don't feel right. The question is whether we're willing to be honest about it and actually do something with it. So I want women to walk away from this episode feeling like they can say to themselves, this is where I get stuck. This is something I want to understand better, something I want to work through, handle differently, and start healing. Because that kind of honesty can change your life. And maybe not all at once, maybe not overnight, but little by little, truth by truth, choice by choice, it changes you. And I think that's the part of healing, the part you have to slow down and sit with. Thank you so much for being here with me for this episode. This one felt personal, and I hope in some way it met you where you are. Whether you're in a season where you're just starting to realize you need stronger boundaries with yourself, or whether you're already doing that work and learning how to protect your peace a little better, I just hope this reminded you that paying attention to yourself matters. Your peace matters, your honesty matters, your healing matters, and you matter. If this episode connected with you and you want to keep going deeper with me, I'd really love for you to spend some time on the website. I've put so much heart into it, and there are so many pieces of me there now. You can visit mommadramaandtrauma.com and explore Jenny's journey, my guided reflections, my written reflections, and the free workbook I have there for you too. There are resources, stories, and healing pieces all throughout the site, and it really has become such a special place for everything I'm building. And if this episode meant something to you, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it too. That really does help these conversations reach more women who are walking through their own healing. And make sure you subscribe, whether you're listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, or tuning in somewhere else. Following the podcast, subscribing, and leaving a review really does help get the show out to more people. And that means a lot to me, because if these conversations can help even one person feel less alone, then it's worth it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking this journey with me. As always, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.